don't think that the hero in Raisin in the Sun ever achieves true tragic stature. But as drama, it's the route that I'm trying to go, yes.
It's the direction you're going. Yeah. That's fascinating.
In Playwright at Work, we're exploring the creative methods, the philosophies, and the aspirations of a new group of writers for the theater. Our guest today is Lorraine Hansberry. Miss Hansberry won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award for her first Broadway play, A Raisin in the Sun. Later in the program, we'll see a scene from Miss Hansberry's work in progress, Toussaint. The scene will be directed for us by Mr. Lloyd Richards, who also staged the Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun. Actors in the scene will be Bramwell Fletcher and Miss Marie Andrews. Lorraine, a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you why you write plays, why you've chosen to write for the theater.
Well, I think it's because I am particularly attracted to a medium where not only do you get to do what we do in life every day, you know, talk to people, but to be very selective about the nature of the conversation. It's an opportunity to treat character in the most absolute relief, one against the other, so that everything, sympathy and conflict, is played so sharply, you know, even a little more than a novel. And I suppose it's my own private sense of drama that makes that appeal to me.
A desire to talk to people?
A desire to talk to people and to, I suppose, also have them do what you want them to do, ultimately.
Your characters?
Yes.
Are there any particular themes which concern you as a dramatist? Or are you, is it more general?
The human race concerns me, and everything that that implies, which is the most ambitious thing you can say, and at the same time, the most modest, too, because I can't think of anything that people do where conflict is born that isn't dramatically interesting. And of course, it's the role of the dramatist to select which part is most interesting. And when you don't, you get a very bum play.
You said in an interview, I think, that you wrote A Raisin in the Sun from a specific intellectual point of view. Is that true? And if it is, what was that point of view?
Yes, I happen to believe that the most ordinary human being, to almost repeat what I just said, has within him elements of profundity, of profound anguish, that there is, you don't have to go to the kings and queens of the earth. I think the Greeks and the Elizabethans did this because it was a logical concept, but every human being is in enormous conflict about something, even if it's how you get to work in the morning and all of that. So that I thought that it would be very interesting in the contemporary American theatrical moment to explore the most ordinary man, say, on the south side of Chicago, who we think we know. You know, he drives you to work and you say, well, he's a nice fellow. But see what he's like at home and some of the ordinary events by the time he gets to work. He's a complicated and large person.
Are you trying to find tragedy in these people, in the smaller people?
Ultimately, I would like to be able, we think in drama that that's the highest form of
Right.
drama. I don't think that the hero in Raisin in the Sun ever achieves true tragic stature. But as drama, it's the route that I'm trying to go, yes.
It's the direction you're going. That's fascinating. Would you call Raisin in the Sun a naturalistic play?
I would not.
And what would you call it, if you had to put a label
I
on
hope
it?
that it is genuine realism.
What's the difference?
Is enormously different. Well, naturalism tends to take the world as it is and say, this is what it is, this is how it happens. It is true because we see it every day in life that way. You know, you simply photograph the garbage can. And realism, I think the artist who is creating the realistic work imposes on it not only what is, but what is possible. because this is part of reality too, so that you get a much larger potential of what man can do. And it requires much greater selectivity. You don't just put everything that seems, you put what you believe is.
In this framework, would you call Shakespeare a realistic writer?
The greatest of them all.
Really?
This is why, for instance, the ghost and whatnot are not outside of realism in Hamlet.
In Hamlet, yes.
Because it's based in the reality of what a man envisions in himself. It's simply a way to embody conscience. I think Shakespeare was the greatest realist. If we could get that element back into contemporary theater, I think we'll be closer to drama of stature again.
The play you're working on now is called Toussaint, and is about, well, perhaps you might tell us who Toussaint was and briefly what it's about.
Well, Toussaint is the first name of the great Haitian liberator, Toussaint Louverture, who most Americans have never heard of, despite the fact that, in my opinion, he was probably greater than even Jose Marti or Simon Bolivar or even our own Washington.
When did he
There is
live?
this possibility. In the 18th century, and he was a field slave who ultimately organized the Haitian people to throw out the armies of Bonaparte and to create the Haitian Republic.
Will we see Toussaint in the scene that we're going to see himself?
No, from my own point of view, I think what is interesting is something that will try to show the nature of the people who are involved in the struggle which is about to envelop Haiti. The first scene deals with the plantation manager and his wife, and what the slave society does to all people involved, not merely the slave.
Good. I think with that introduction, we'll have a look at the scene if we can. We'll ask Lloyd Richards to set the scene for us, if you would, please, Lloyd.
Haiti, 1780, the year of insurrection, the year before major rebellion. The place is the upstairs bedroom of Béon de Bergeret and his wife, Lucier. Béon is the manager of a plantation, Breda, and they're preparing for dinner, preparing to entertain Monsieur Pétion from France.
Oh, Béon, Béon, Béon. The point remains that I am in no mood to hear your dull, tiresome talk of acreage and harvest, or an equally dull, tiresome discussion of the present political state of affairs of France. The current palpitations of the French Directory don't interest me. Napoleon himself doesn't interest me. I am not interested in your guests, and I shall not want to hear one single word that they have had to say when they are gone.
Well, my sweet, you'll hear it this evening. Not only that, you will listen the entire length of time that their entertainment may require. In fact, you will make it seem to our guests that you have never enjoyed anyone's company quite so much. You will laugh your disarming and enchanting little laugh at each and every anecdote that Monsieur Pétion may care to tell. And you will stretch your eyes wide with delight at each item of Parisian gossip that Madame Pétion may care to offer. You will do it. You will do all of it. Now I'll ring for Destinée so that you may begin your toilette.
How you do sigh of late, Béon. You have turned into one long sigh.
Is it any wonder? I could only tell you how tired I am.
What did you say?
I said if I could only tell you of my agony.
Oh, Béon, don't. It is too dreadful when you are feeling agonized. It is the measure of our marriage now, Béon, that you wear the clay from her grave right into our bedroom. Remember when you still cared enough to at least have the mud meticulously cleaned before you came home to me after your visits up there? I had, I think, a shred of love left for you because of that. Do you still take wild orange blossoms? I've often wondered about the specialness of orange blossoms. Did she used to wear them in her hair?
How foolish you are to go on
And
like
when
this.
you put them on her grave, does she cry out to you, "Oh, mon petit, my strong one, my ivory god, how good that you come to see me. Do you still love me, my love, my master?" What made you bury her up there, Béon? Was it some special romantic plea on the deathbed?
I can't talk to you when you're like this.
Yes, you're right, Béon. I am being suffocating. I should have taught myself not to care or not to know, as is the fashion of the wives of Santo Domingo.
We shall forget it all when we're back home in France.
I am home. Of late, you seem to forget, my darling, that I am a Creole. This is my home. The sea is in my blood, the mountains my very brain, and the cane fields down there, why, Béon, they are the stuff of this buccaneer flesh of mine. I intend to die here.
The great romance of the Creoles.
If you like. Oh, tell me about the Petillons. You knew them in Paris, didn't you?
I never met his wife. I met him once or twice at Noé's.
What's he like? Tell me that and I shall tell you to a detail what his wife is like. I am brilliant at that. You say so yourself.
He's a man. Where are my garters?
What sort of man?
He's a man, that's all. Where are my garters?
Why are you sullen now? I've changed my mood. Why don't you change yours?
I'm not being sullen. I'm looking for my garters.
If you are a true gentleman, you would have someone dress you.
I despise having anybody hovering over me while I'm dressing.
I asked you to tell me about Pétion.
I've told you all there is that you need to know. Marcel Pétion is the courier of my employer in Paris, Monsieur Noé. He's come to visit the estate, return to France, and give his personal estimation to Noé. If I'm to stay here one more year, I must have a good report. Just one more year.
And then we shall go to live in Paris.
Then we shall go to live in Paris. Now, my sweet, you'll get dressed. Do none of the servants ever come when they're called in this house? If I ran my fields the way you run this house.
Oh, Béon, how you love to give orders. You do try so hard to be an ominous old Grand Blanc. Poor little Béon. Poor little petit bourgeois who likes to sit astride his horse in the fields and play at being master, not merely manager of a great plantation. While his most highly esteemed employer, who esteems nothing at all, is too occupied to care to see for himself how one of his boring old plantations is faring. But sends instead his insignificant little couriers year after year to spy on you. How badly your Claude plays. But I like it.
Yes, you would like it. And do not call him my Claude. I do not wish to warn you about that again, Monsieur.
Poor Luchet. Poor little Creole pig who lacks all sense of the refinements of style that should accompany the playing of a minuet.
You have stated the matter as it is.
You self-absorbed, prancing, affected little bourgeois worshipper of the aristocracy. How your insults have ceased to affect me. How pallid they have become. Isn't that depressing? It depresses me terribly that nothing about you matters, not even your insults, your treasured insults.
I'm sorry I should have hurt you with my regrets.
Hurt me?
I've told you 1,000
How
times.
eloquent you are.
I had my own difficulties in those days.
It is etched here.
You should forgive me.
Forgive! How does one forgive hearing one's own grandmother described as spawned? Or hearing your own father called the whelp of the discharge of an incoherent panting buccaneer? I have never heard such contempt, even for the slaves. But then, of course, they fetch higher prices on the block.
Yeah.
A creature purchased is a creature purchased. To dress fun in laces and sit at the head of your dining board is no true index of value. Nor is it an index of the daily, hourly humiliation of my awareness of the bastard legions roaming this plantation, opening and closing doors for me, waiting me on my own table, and paying minuets in my own home.
I will not have these words in this house. You will stop at this instant. Suppose the girls should hear it.
Hear it? You think they don't know it? They are island-born too, Béant. Who is your Toussaint having punished now?
It's like Simeon is being whipped.
Toussaint is a brute.
He's a steward and an excellent one.
What would happen to the plantation if he ever ran away, Béant?
He won't run away. He's content. Toussaint has his own sense of the order of things.
Yes, I think so. How strange the two of you are together in the field. You with your wide-brimmed hat astride your horse, seeming to command. And he, the slave, barefoot beside you, with the yellow handkerchief and hideous face, commanding.
I've told you time and time again that he's not a slave.
Well, is he free?
No, he's not free either.
Then he must be a slave. You're either one thing or the other.
It's a special situation. As a woman, you wouldn't understand it.
Oh, but explain it to me, Béant. I will try very hard to understand it. And tell me about yourself. Are you a free man, Béant?
Of course I'm a free man.
Then why haven't you left Santo Domingo long ago? What is it that keeps a free man where he does not wish to be? Tell me, what is freedom, Béant de Bergère?
As an abstraction, that is something that's hard to explain. Least of all these days for a Frenchman.
Do you think he gets pleasure from it?
Of course he does.
Personally, I don't think so. I've watched his merciless way with the slaves, and I saw no pleasure in it.
What do you mean?
A woman's reasoning. It would bore you or make you laugh. I shall keep it to myself.
Excellent. I only know that Toussaint knows how to drive men.
Men? Isn't there a difference between slaves and other men, Béant?
In the sense that I meant it just now, they're all the same.
I saw him once when he was having Sidelli whipped. He stood quite near with his arms folded across his chest, watching, with the most complicated expression on his face that I have ever seen.
Yes, he's a weird old buck, if that's what you mean. But one thing is certain, he's content. I wish I could say the same for the others. What with their running away and their rebelliousness. But Toussaint is a special kind of black. There's something strange and almost mystical in his acceptance. I asked him one day, quite casually, you know, about the insurrections. He waved the question away as though he were impatient at listening to the subject. Toussaint is a wise man. Now, my sweet, you'll get dressed. I shall expect you downstairs in at least an hour. And in excellent humor.
Lloyd, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Frank, and thank you, Lorraine.
I'd like to open the discussion by asking Lorraine what you were working for in this scene and how well you feel it was achieved.
Well, as a preliminary scene, as what will I still hope, be the very beginning of the play. It was an effort to set preliminary character of two principals and to discover some personal aspects of their lives before we see them in conflict with other people in the play, so that the audience is able at once to begin to relate to them in what may not be entirely sympathetic roles as the play evolves, but as human beings, which is always a certain measure of sympathy. This is why I want them to be people in our minds first.
Lloyd, what problems did you deal with in doing the scene, and how well do you think it came off?
Problems. The problem was to get it all in. The fascinating, absolutely fascinating part of working on Lorraine's work is that there are so many levels of work to get in. It isn't just the obvious. There are things being said about not just the characters. There are things being said about the time, the milieu, and to suggest those things and to work out of those things, particularly like in this scene.
Yes.
For me, there were the three levels of slavery. The level of slavery that existed or exists with Toussaint and the relationship to Toussaint. The actual slaves, which you see in the scene, even setting up the table. You don't see it here, but it happens if you see it on the stage. Then there's the level of slavery of the wife, a woman bought, you know, not a woman loved, a woman purchased, really, and the effect of slavery on her. Then ultimately, Béant himself, a man who's a slave to the system. He can't break out of it himself. It dehumanizes him right down the line, and this effect on each individual and what it causes them to do to the other was the thing that I was working for in the scene, and the thing that I think is there and must be realized, and it's fascinating to work on.
I certainly think it was realized. Did you have those three levels in mind when you wrote the scene, Lorraine?
Yes, I'm so glad to hear that this is what Lloyd feels about it. It grows out of a thought of mine that, as I study history, that virtually all of us are what our circumstances allow us to be, and that it really doesn't matter whether you're talking about the oppressed or the oppressor. An oppressive society will dehumanize and degenerate everyone involved. And in certain very poetic and very true ways at the same time, it will tend to make, if anything, the oppressed have more stature, because at least they are arbitrarily placed in the situation of overwhelming that which is degenerate, in this instance a slave society. So it isn't that it doesn't become an abstraction. It has to do with what really happens to all of us in a certain context.
And which is what really happened in Haiti with Toussaint, isn't that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Are there any particular problems you found inherent in writing or working on an historical play?
Yes, what I think a dramatist has to do is to thoroughly inundate himself or herself in an awareness of the realities of the historical period, and then dismiss it, and then become absolutely dedicated to the idea that what you are going to do is to create human beings whom you know in your own time, you see, so that all of us sitting out in the audience feel that, oh yes, we know him, no matter what period. This is the 1700s, but we must feel, I have had this experience, I have known this person, so that once you know the realities of the time, you use them really as residue at the back of the head, so that you know you don't have them go out and get an automobile, but that where the human emotion is universal in the time sense as well as the world sense.
Well, you spoke in the first section about the realistic play, the dramatist superimposing his own solution. Aren't you stuck with the facts of history in a play like this?
Oh, you have to be true to the facts of history, but within that context, many things are possible about the supposition of human reactions to a situation. But you don't have the French win the revolution, obviously, because that is...
I understand.
That would be against realism.
And wishful thinking.
The French part, not mine.
Lloyd, in a hypothetical situation, if you were putting this play into rehearsal tomorrow, would you ask Lorraine for any changes in the scene?
Oh, if I was putting the play into rehearsal tomorrow, no, I wouldn't. I don't think even now I'm completely able to judge. I think this scene as it exists works with minor changes here and there. I know she has some ideas about that. But this scene exists within other scenes that are going on at the same time. This scene is upstairs. Downstairs, the slaves are setting the table. You find too many people, you know, which is also indicative of a slave society, where, as Lorraine said once when we were discussing it, 40 people to wait on 4. You know, one only brings in the pickle forks or the napkin rings, and that's all he has to do. And just people standing around, a waste of it. That you see.
And that will show in the scene, yes.
And the outside, the waste of human energy, the waste of human life, and this taking place within it. Now, I'd have to see all that to see what minor changes would have to be made, but I don't think they'd be major at this point.
Lorraine, did you learn anything from seeing the scene performed?
Yes, both in terms of strengths and weaknesses. I think it does work dramatically. There are points where it's a little static, and some static quality in this kind of work is desirable. I have toyed with the idea in my head already, which this makes me wonder about again, the possibility of a third character being in the scene, the wife
in the room?
Yes, who would be a slave, a male servant, who really is dressing him. This would be one of the affectations of the aristocracy that Bayonne has taken on, and where this man is literally there.
And would they play the same emotions in front of this man?
Exactly, and their most intimate revelations in front of this human being, because this, again, is the dehumanizing character of such a social order.
And it does affect
and this would be very
oppressive,
theatrical, I think.
Yes.
I may not do it, I don't know,
I
but it's
understand.
one of the
And
things.
it's indicative of today,
Yes.
too. Any bellboy can tell you that this goes on.
Or a taxi driver, I suppose.
Yes.
Or maid.
Lorraine, what would you say have been your most satisfying moments as a playwright?
Well, I would think just immediately the audience reaction to the one play, after all, that has been before the public, and that is Raisin.
The audience reaction, how? In what sense?
Well, we were often struck with the fact that as theatergoers, it seemed to us we had the most responsive, spectacularly so, audiences that I'd seen in a long time in the Broadway theater, where people literally were almost talking to the actors. I don't think our curtain ever came down when you didn't hear the women say, "Don't forget your plant."
You
to the
reached
mother.
them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say, that I do feel that it did reach the audience, and no writer ever really wants more than that. No matter how we say it, that's ultimately what we want.
Thank you.
Today on Playwright at Work, we've investigated the working philosophy of 2 gifted additions to the American theater. Our guests were Lorraine Hansberry and Lloyd Richards.
This is NET, National Educational Television.